let's move on to the stuff that we have with peptides as well today, because you've recently put out a book. You've got a strong connection with a peptide company that researches and puts together all the peptides that we're going to talk about today. And again, there's a link for that in the video description. It says for peptides, visit limitlesslifenootropics.com/rich. And if you use the coupon code he gave me was rich15, it gets you 15% off the stuff. So let's hop into the peptide stuff, because there's new fat loss peptides, which are relatively new to the marketplace.
Yeah.
And you first mentioned it to me a few months ago. And since you've mentioned it, I've had a lot of people bring it up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pronounce it completely wrong, so I'll let you do it. I'm just going to copy and paste them in the chat here.
Yep.
So you guys have record of it if you guys want to look them up later. But go ahead.
Yeah. So no problem. Well, so first off, let me just say, going back to Dr. J, I'm in total agreement, dude. Like, it's a joke. I've actually told him, I'm like, bro, you should charge $1,000 for this. Like, why are you charging $500 or $600? And you're right. So for $300, it's like,
he's a doctor though. He's not a businessman.
No. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, you're ripping him off at $300. Yeah. I mean, it's the most insane shit. You guys are going to go back to it. Bro, do you still go to yours? I still look at mine.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Like once every 3 or 4 months, if I start taking a supplement, I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go back and look for this to see. But anyway, go do it. He's 100% right. And by the way, you guys, I know that there's somebody watching this right now that has gynecomastia. It's very important. I've said this on Richard's show many times before. If you're taking drugs to stop gyno, you're fucking killing yourself. Okay. You have to get it cut out. Don't play games. Get it cut out. In Canada, it's probably free. I can recommend a surgeon. I know like 2 or 3 of them there know how to do it. The problem with gyno is that most doctors don't know how to do it, Richard, as you know, because they just cut out the actual tissue and then it comes back. So you have to cut out the glandular tissue. Okay. So that means they have to go up in through here and pull it all out. It's not a bad deal. It's an outpatient procedure, but they will have to put a drain in for like 3 or 4 days. I think most surgeries, if you got to do both nipples, which most guys will have to do, in like the US or the West, it's going to cost you $5 to $7 grand. It's the best money you ever spend. Fucking gyno burns. It's horrible. You can't hug your kids. Your dog jumps up on you. You're like, ow, your wife, you can't, it just sucks. Get it cut out. Anyway, I'm done with that. So peptides, I definitely want to say this, and I'll mention his name, but I probably shouldn't, but Dr. Peter Attia is now like the big name celebrity doctor, right? Like everybody uses him when they say this, that, and the other. And Richard, I'm sure you've had people that have emailed you about this. The big story right now for the GLP-1 agonist. So these are the fat loss peptides that Richard is talking about. There's 2 main ones, and they are called, scientific names are semaglutide, which is Olympic or Ozempic. I can't ever pronounce that word. And then tirzepatide, which is the newest GLP-1 agonist, which is Mounjaro. Now, those are the retail names of the drugs. Right. Now, what's happening in the pharmaceutical world is a lot of the compounders are blending these with other agents like B vitamins and choline and carnitine and stuff like that so that they can mollify the patent and they can sell it to you for cheaper. But at the end of the day, I'm literally not kidding you. I just sent an email about this yesterday. These are the 2 most profound fat loss agents known to man. 5 years ago, you could not write a book. So you don't know this, Richard, but my next book coming out, which is coming out within the next 2 months, is going to be called 30 Days to Shreds. And it is going to be, not some bro bodybuilder get ripped in 30 days book. It's going to be literally like a deconstruction of how science now allows people to lose 15 to 25 pounds of pure visceral body fat in 30 days or less using these agents. And Peter Attia and some other people, and it's going to continue. And I'm going to make a bigger point on this in a second, but they're talking about how these agents are causing muscle loss in the users. And the problem, and again, I want all of you guys to know this. First off, I've been using both of these agents. Tirzepatide's only been in the marketplace for public use since August of last year. Semaglutide's been in the marketplace since December of 2021. I started semaglutide in January of 2022. And I started tirzepatide in August of 2022. So I've used all of these drugs for combined more than a year, but each more than 6 months. My wife has also used semaglutide. It's a lie what they're saying. I mean, you already know, Richard. I mean, what comes out of the mainstream, if it bleeds, it leads. But they are measuring muscle loss in obese, morbidly obese again, comorbid, what they call patient population groups, because these people are 400 pounds, 375 pounds, whatever they are. And the doctors are running them scripts for these drugs, which dramatically suppress appetite. That's the number one thing they do. They suppress your appetite. Tirzepatide also is a metabolic uncoupler, which means that over time, as you use it, it enhances BMR, which is basic metabolic rate, which means you'll burn more calories at rest. So me and Richard, if we're on it right now, are burning more calories at rest talking on a podcast than the average person who's listening. Okay. So, but the bottom line is, if you do this right, and what I mean by right is, and again, you know this, Richard, and most of your audience knows this too, you exercise and you lift weights. You do cardiovascular exercise, right? You reduce carbohydrate intake, which is essentially living insulin controlled. You get enough sleep. You do all the other things that obviously people like us that are living the quote unquote optimized lifestyle do. And you throw these agents in, they're gifts from the fat loss gods. I mean, these are literally golden age biotech. But if you're a morbidly obese person and your doctor says, hey, I can write you a script for Ozempic or tirzepatide, and then you start using it and it kills your appetite and you stop eating, well, yeah, you're going to drop weight. But as you know, you're going to crash your metabolism. You're going to crash your thyroid. And so what ends up happening is these people lose, Richard, I'm telling you, I've had 100 emails in the last 3 months from people. They lose 100 pounds. Again, morbidly obese people, they lose 100 pounds in 3 months. And you're like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. They come off of it and they gain 150 pounds back in 2 months. And why did they gain the weight back? Because again, they crashed their metabolism. Their thyroid is completely malfunctioned. They didn't lose the weight correctly. They did not eat, 1 gram per pound of lean body mass. They didn't lift weights. Again, they're fat people. How do people get fat? They don't exercise. They don't eat right. So then you give them this amazing drug that kills their appetite and they keep being a fat person, right? They just eat less. They don't do anything correctly. And the doctors don't instruct them how to do this correctly. So then, yes, these people lose muscle. And Peter Attia and other people that are glomming on. I saw this Dr. Kyle Gillette the other day was interviewed by Thomas DeLauer. I know you know Thomas. I mean, these guys are literally coming on now saying they're horrible. Don't use them. I saw Kyle Gillette said that he has women that have gallbladder issues. And I'm like, if you're morbidly obese and a type 2 diabetic and you take this drug and now you're not eating, right, but maybe 2 meals a day instead of 6, you're still eating the same shit that you were eating before, that you don't get enough fiber and roughage and greens and all these other things. And so, yeah, you're constipated. So yeah, you're going to have gallbladder issues, but this does not correlate to healthy people, which is the majority of your audience, the majority of my listening audience. So unfortunately, as you know, the healthy people are now being lied to. And they're freaking out. They're like, oh my God, dude, I don't know. My doctor said, he watched the interview with Dr. Peter Attia that was in the mail. And he's like, I don't think I should be using him anymore. And I'm like, well, how do you feel on him? Like, do you have side effects? No, it's the greatest thing I've ever had. I've lost all this weight. Are you still lifting? Are you still eating insulin controlled? Are you doing your cardio? Well, yeah, then you're good. Dude, the only side effect, this is the truth. The only side effect for people like us who use these drugs is smaller bowel movements. Who doesn't want smaller bowel movements? I mean, literally, dude, when I first started doing this a year ago, I was a little bit concerned because I'm like, what's going on? And then I started looking into the biology and the pharmacokinetics of what these things do. And they do increase bile salt and metabolic equations and biochemical cascades to break down the food that you're eating. And then when you combine that with the idea that you're not eating as much anymore, then yes, you're going to have smaller bowel movements. But I'm telling you, they did years of research, double-blind, placebo-controlled studies on unhealthy people, type 2 diabetics, which, as you know, are usually human dumpster fires. These are people that treat their body like shit. And none of them had really bad side effects, but all of them showed massive weight loss. Okay. So again, the devil is in the details. Context is key. If you know how to lose body fat correctly, and again, I don't have to get into it, but it's protein, enough protein per pound of lean body mass, resistance training, cardiovascular training, proper sleep, reducing your carbohydrate intake. This is the greatest thing that you could ever use, because nothing will lose or drop body fat as fast as these drugs will. And dude, you know about fasting. I don't have to get into fasting. If you're a faster, These are the greatest tools ever because now you have no hunger pangs. You know, you don't get to 16, 17, 18 hours and you're like, oh, bro, I got to fucking eat. You don't have hunger.
Do you still get like all the benefits of fasting if you use these appetite suppressants like the ketones and all that stuff after a certain period of time, or does it suppress
So
that?
that's a great question. 100% you do. So all these things.
So
are
the
giving
autophagy
me-
and all that still
Yes,
happens.
exactly.
Okay.
So I was just, dude, we're so connected. You literally just stole my thunder. I was going to say,
Because I don't fast that often. Like if
Yeah.
I do, I find it painful. It's like, this sucks. Like
so bro, you will literally be able to fast on these. That's where I was going. So both of these drugs, and by the way, let me just decline this a little bit. So semaglutide is older. It's been around longer. It's been studied more. More people are using it because, again, availability. Tirzepatide, like I said, just came out in August of last year, but tirzepatide is 5 to 10 times better than semaglutide because it's more tolerated. And again, because it's a metabolic uncoupler where semaglutide isn't. Now, I don't want to confuse people, and me, I can send a lot of information out, but there's actually one coming that Limitless is going to have. Hopefully, again, quotes up within the next month to a month and a half, that is a triple agonist, which actually means, okay, so semaglutide is a single agonist, tirzepatide is a double agonist, and the triple agonist will mean it attacks fat loss from all 3 pathways. So the pathways of fat loss are caloric restriction or, appetite suppression, metabolic uncoupling, enhanced thermogenesis, and then the final aspect is accelerated caloric burning when you're exercising. So imagine when you exercise, you have like another blast furnace going on now, enhancing caloric burn while you exercise. So there literally is one coming that you can use and not take anything else other than maybe testosterone and a growth hormone peptide or growth GH itself, and you will be completely and totally shredded if you live the lifestyle. Seriously, and it's already been through phase 2 clinical trials.
I have some questions for you.
Sure.
So a good friend of mine is taking tirzepatide. What was the brand name? It started with an M. Mounjaro. That's it. So that's the one that he got.
Yep.
We were talking on my general's conversation, I don't know, like a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago when he first started it. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to do this. I've heard this, that, and the other thing. So I sent a text to my trainer, and I asked him if he had any experience with tirzepatide. So this is what he said. So I'm just going to read it back to you because he didn't really like the idea. So I want to hear how you feed back to it. He says, not available in Canada as far as I can tell. It's dual purpose anti-diabetic drug that started as a GLP-1 agonist known as Victorza. I used Victorza in 2014 and lost 30 pounds and stopped. Put about 60 people on it since. This is promising, but I don't think it's available in Canada yet. Do you know what he's talking about with this Victorza?
So that was basically the original semaglutide before they, patented it.
Okay, so the one that's being used now that my friend's using, and by the way, he lost, I think he said 20 kilos, if I'm not mistaken. So that's close to 50 pounds. Anyway, he goes on, 45 on. Long-term, it makes you insulin desensitized. I wouldn't recommend it if you plan to get to 100 years old. Then I was asking him if it's worth it for a guy like me that, might want to lose that last remaining, bit of belly fat, like visceral fat. He says it may take away more muscle than fat, which you were talking about. This shit is designed for obese individuals. I don't know too many or any bodybuilder types that take it.
Just because they don't understand it and they're a bunch of bro science idiots anyway.
Okay. It may be worth to try it for 3 to 4 months prior to see what it's like and still have enough time to correct possible unwanted results like losing too much muscle as fat.
That's complete nonsense, dude. That guy literally listens to Peter Attia. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. I mean, I don't know who he is and I don't care, but it's not true.
Well, he's a guy that I respect, so that's why I'm asking for your feedback.
I mean, look, and he's listening to Peter Attia. He might be a genius. I mean, again, it always is like your what do you call it? Your echo chamber.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you don't actually use this yourself, and he did use it himself. Well, he hasn't used tirzepatide, but he used semaglutide. Semaglutide is different than tirzepatide. I mean, again, I've used them both, but so to address the first thing he said about the insulin insensitivity, that's completely patently false.
Yeah, there's one more thing when you're done that.
Okay. But I mean, look, and you know me, I'm the biggest metformin promoter on the planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I've written all the articles, like everybody uses my data when they want to like debunk metformin or support metformin. If you're going to use anything that is going to suppress appetite, enhance metabolism, you have to use an insulin mimetic. So it's either metformin or dihydroberberine. Metformin is still the be all end all because it's coming from a pharmaceutical process and sterility control versus a supplement like dihydroberberine, which you can't really trust any supplement manufacturers because they don't have any sterility process and control. But dihydroberberine, if you get a quality version, is close to metformin. But that's not true about it screws up insulin sensitivity. And then look, I would even argue that at a certain age, and you and I aren't getting any younger, you don't fucking have any insulin sensitivity. So, I mean, like, what does it even matter? Our food is poisoned. Everything is sprayed with chemicals and, like Dr. J says, glyphosate and atrazine. I mean, if you live in the Midwest in the United States or Canada, you are literally being bombarded by poison every single day. Everything you eat.
Yeah, Dr. J covers that in depth in his book and the podcast.
So, I mean, the reality is like, you're going to be insulin insensitive as you age unless you take matters into your own hands. And obviously the GLP-1 agonist can help, metformin can help, dihydroberberine can help, using a growth hormone inducing peptide like ipamorelin or tesamorelin, or even just, human growth hormone, a micro dosage itself. I mean, all of these things are going to help you. I mean, I do all of these things, but like I said, I've been using it for a year and a half combined between both. I've never been leaner. I've never felt better. I don't eat as much food anymore. The other thing is, I would debate, and by the way, you can get Dr. Rudolph Eberwein. He's been using semaglutide for 7 years with his patients. He has a giant obesity clinic in Miami, and he's also the main hormone optimization doctor for MHI Life, which are, some guys very close to me that I recommend. There's geniuses in the space. He's been on one-on-one interviews with me and podcasts where we debated all of these things. Like, okay, what happens when people come off? What are the side effects? Like, is there insulin insensitivity? Is there, downregulation of beta glucan receptors in the pancreas and all this? And he's like, not in my patients and not in the studies. And most people that have used these, they all report the same thing. Again, correctly, incredible fat loss. And my appetite is reduced, permanently reduced. Now, some people ask, and this is an important question, they're like, okay, well, what if I don't want to have a permanently reduced appetite? At what point can I expect to go back to normal? And again, without fail, in the 100 people that I've talked to or interviewed or just know that have used them, everyone says the same thing. And about 2 months after, you go back to you feel normal as far as your what do you call it? Your appetite.
Okay. And then the last part he gave me feedback on, he said also GLP-1 agonists are hard on the kidneys and liver. And I mean, like for me, like I'm always tracking my liver values because I've had some family history on that. So GLP agonists are not hard on your organs.
No, I mean, again, they're hard on the organs of people who treat their body like dumpster fires. Because if you're not,
is that where they're getting the data from? Because like
that's where
doctors are giving it to like severely obese people.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. And that's why I made my video that I put up 2 weeks ago about this. I actually have a really good friend who's a doctor. He has all the research. And he sent me like a whole email breaking down the patient population groups for all the research that guys like Atia and them are using, again, the talking points. And dude, obese diabetic women taking 15 milligrams of this drug. Dude, people like us should be taking 2.5 milligrams a week. These people were taking 15 milligrams every other day. So again, the devil is in the details. That is like an industrial dosage. So yes, if there's, gallbladder issues or, elevated panels, of course. And then again, what are they eating? They're not eating clean.
Yeah. And I wonder
whatever they want.
Yeah. And I wonder at the end of the day, if there's already like a predisposition for organ damage from somebody that's morbidly obese because they've done so much damage to their body. Like you could lose 100 pounds of fat. Right. But you've lost the fat. Okay, good. You've probably saved yourself some cardiovascular damage or maybe gain a little bit of longevity. But if you've done damage to your organs, were diabetic when you were overweight, then that could be problematic. So I'll let you guys do your own research. But How now you've got a book on peptides. Do people get the guidance on how to use peptides from the book? Is it provided from Limitless Peptides linked in the description? Like, how do they know how to dose it if they want to try this? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. So, I mean, first off, the book was published. I think it was like actually physically available to human beings on February 2nd or 3rd, whatever the first. No, it was actually, I think
What's
it
it
was
called?
whatever. It's called Optimize Your Health with Therapeutic Peptides. And
that's
it's on
Amazon?
Amazon.
Yeah, let me just grab a link and I'll drop that in the chat.
Yeah, no problem. It was exactly February 1st. So we pre-launched it. And like the week before in January, we launched it. It was #1 selling book in men's health, alternative medical, like 4 categories in Europe, Canada, USA, Australia for the entire month of February. It's done
Optimize
really
your health
well.
with therapeutic peptides.
Yeah, it's done very well.
Yeah, it's got a very good rating, actually. It's got a lot of ratings.
Of course.
So, yeah.
It's a 5-star rated book. And it's got a lot of science in it. It's not a book though that is written for doctors. I mean, it is from a resource perspective, but I don't have.
I was going to ask you, can anybody read it and use it that has no experience with this stuff?
It's written for it's a 6th to 8th grade level for anyone who's interested in using peptides to extend their life. That's bottom line.
I really hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full-length podcast, you can find that over here, that clip's from. If you're newer to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe over here and pin down below in the top comment. You'll find a bunch of useful links to my website, my supplement line, books, and a bunch of other stuff. Have an amazing day. Peace out.